Welcome to another edition of the Learning Journey podcast here at MAF. Wayne Heinsohn, your host once again, as we record today from Cairns in far north Queensland, because we're here at orientation talking to some of the candidates who are about to head out into program, and one of those is our guest on the show today, originally from New Zealand, headed to PNG via Uganda. That will make much more sense in just a minute's time. Renee Brewer joins us. Hey Renee, welcome to the Learning Journey.
Thank you.
Now, I mentioned that you headed to PNG. I kind of want to get there soon, but
Yes.
Let's talk about the flying thing, because your story for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening, is so fascinating because it was sort of almost by accident, like you started on the journey to being a pilot. Sort of tell us about that.
Yes, definitely by accident. I don't have any pilots in the family, and I never had sort of a fascination with aviation. I was at the airport with my father one day. He was there for work. He worked for a newspaper, and he was there for advertising purposes. And the Aero Club were having an open day. You could do a trial flight. He bought me a trial flight, and I really enjoyed it. So that's where my aviation journey began.
Yeah.
Initially just as a hobby. I thought it was quite a fun thing to do. But yes, later on it became my career.
Yeah. So when did it go from hobby to potential career, or something you thought, hey, I want to spend some more time investing into this?
It wasn't until I was going into my final year of school, I had sort of written it off as a career I did not want, because I did not want to be an airline pilot. I wanted to work in the humanitarian field. I was looking into teaching or something in that realm. And I heard about MAF, and I was really inspired because I learnt that I could fly but also work for a humanitarian organisation, and was also a Christian organisation, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So that was when I started considering, hey, I should do this, I should look into this as a career, and what else would it take to be able to do this for a job.
Yeah. So how did you hear about MAF? Because I'm always fascinated, particularly, like people, as you say, coming out of school and very early on in adult life, how you actually hear about an organisation like MAF.
That's a really good question, because I almost wonder how I made it that far without having heard about them, because I grew up in church, and I went to several different churches, and I was involved with different things. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when I first heard about it, but it might have been at one of those Christian music festivals they have in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. MAF has a stand at the different festivals, or it may have been my father worked for a Christian organisation in New Zealand, and MAF does advertising with them.
Right.
So I can't pinpoint exactly which one of those it was, but somewhere in that a few months when my dad started in that job and I went to this festival, I heard about MAF.
Yeah. So there's a lot of organisations, a lot of Christian organisations, that I'm sure across going to church and being with mum and dad that you would have heard of. So what was the thing about MAF that really resonated with you in terms of them as an organisation, but maybe more than that, like your potential role as part of MAF?
I think what I liked about MAF is that it was really practical.
Yeah.
Although passionate about sharing Jesus and the story of the Bible with people, I also feel really called to help people in a practical way. And a lot of the missionaries in our church growing up, a lot of them were over in countries with the focus of evangelism and church building and that's not where I think my gifts lie. Yeah, so it was more MAF, I can do something really practical to help people, serve people, and also bring Jesus to them.
So did you then start kind of like a learning journey? I'll drop the name of the podcast in at this point, but when it came to MAF and sort of how you might get involved, was it a lot of sort of study, talk to people, that kind of process? Yeah,
MAF New Zealand was quite good at taking me on board and sort of just keeping me in the loop. I volunteered for them at the Christian Music Festival in years to come, and they would sort of keep in touch with me and where I was going with my journey. So it was probably in sort of talking with them that I found out more about the job and what they did, and that sort of further made me want to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, so sort of learning about the organisation,
Yes.
obviously, that you're thinking, well, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to serve for however many years that, it winds up being, must have been an important thing for you.
Yes, so they let me know quite early on what the sort of requirements were, what I had to do to serve with them, and sort of guided me in a sense of the sort of direction I needed to go, because it certainly wasn't something that was available to me right then and there.
Yes.
Or I didn't have the skills yet or the experience, so definitely through their guidance was how I sort of ended up being like, yes, this was something that I think I want to do.
Yeah. So I'm interested, you say you didn't have the skills or experience.
No.
And often we don't have, we gain those over life, and, the older, hopefully the wiser we become and the more skills we acquire.
Yeah.
But for you, like at that sort of start of the MAF journey, what were some of the skills that you needed to acquire? Like what was some of the learning that you needed to do? And that might not just be like the technical side of things when it comes to flying, there might have been other things as well.
Yeah, at that point I was halfway to my private pilot's license, which is more of a recreational license. You can't work on that license, so I would need to finish that, get my commercial pilot's license. That was sort of the physical skills. They let me know that you need to have some sort of spiritual background, in the sense that perhaps if you were older than I was, you might have that through experience for being a Christian for a period of time.
Yeah.
For me, I studied at a Bible college in New Zealand, Laidlaw. I did some papers through them to really increase my spiritual knowledge. Additional to that, I suppose the process involves that you need to make sure that this is God's plan for you. So they definitely encouraged me to pray about it and make sure that this was God's plan, and that I felt that it was God's plan for my life.
Yeah. So are you naturally a learner? Because some people, and I'd put myself in this category, naturally like learning, and increasing knowledge. Like, does that sort of speak about you, or are you more of a bit like my son, more of a reluctant learner?
I think I do like to learn. I sort of always end up doing a lot of study, so from the outside it probably looks like I like to learn. Yeah, I think I like to increase my knowledge, and I want to know more, and I don't want to be stagnant. I want to improve, whether that's professionally or spiritually. So I'm always sort of looking for, I guess, something to learn.
And did having a goal, did that help? You've talked to MAF, you've decided this is what I want to do. They've come back and said, we want to have you, but here's some things that you need to do, which, can be a bit frustrating if we're honest, because, hey, we just want to jump in and, and get our hands dirty, so to speak. But did knowing that there was an end goal help you through that process of being at Bible college and doing all the other learning activities that you had to do?
I would say yes and no, because I think because I heard about MAF I heard about MAF probably like 11 years ago, and that's when I sort of pivoted towards I want to work for MAF, and it's only the last few months that I'm officially working for MAF. I think it was difficult because I wanted it to happen right then and there when I was keen to work for MAF. And yes, having the goal was helpful in the sense that I knew how many hours I needed before I could apply, and I knew how much time I had to spend at Bible school before I could apply. But nevertheless, it didn't make it any less that it required time. And and the whole process probably took just more time than I expected it would. In terms of, and lots happened in that time. We had COVID, I got made redundant, lots of different things happened. So it was helpful, but then it was also like, oh, it's so far in the future. So what did you learn about yourself? Because I think, one of the healthy things as Christians is to be a bit self-reflective and, to kind of see where we're at in our walk with Jesus, and, we should be learning not only scripture and, more about God, but about who we are as his son or his daughter. So through that decade or so, what did you learn about Renee? I learnt that I'm pretty impatient. I think I'm pretty impatient. If I have something I'm working towards, like I want to see tangible steps, and I want to be, stepping on that step and onto the next one. And I think God definitely taught me a lot about patience and timing. Things don't happen in our timing. It definitely happened in God's timing. And I can see that going into math now, it would have probably been a lot harder for me to do this 6 years ago, probably maturity-wise, and the things I have to sacrifice going overseas now. I feel like, well, you know, I've had a good life, I've had lots of social times, and I've been able to do those things in New Zealand that I won't necessarily be able to do in the same way in Papua New Guinea.
Now, we're chatting in Cairns at orientation, but
Yes.
as I understand, you've just come back from Uganda.
Yes, I have.
So talk to us about that.
Yes.
First thing I want to know is, have you done a lot of like cross-cultural travel, so a lot of international travel? And secondly, I want to know, you hit the ground in Uganda. What are you thinking about? Like, because it's very different than New Zealand. Let's
Very
put it
different.
like that.
Yes. I mean, it depends who you compare in terms of travel, but probably for my age, I've done a fair bit of travel.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the first sort of developing country I'd visited, and it certainly hasn't been the most uncomfortable country I've visited. So that's been good. I probably haven't experienced too much culture shock. I really have enjoyed Uganda. I found the people really friendly, and it is chaotic, it's dirty, but it's dusty, but it's also beautiful and green. One thing I love about Uganda is when you're out running, I've been running for exercise since I've been there, and quite a lot of Ugandan people exercise and are out running too, and when they see you, they'll give you a thumbs up or say like, good job, like give you a bit of encouragement, which is like very unusual, because in New Zealand, I mean, I guess there's a lot of people out exercising, no one says anything. So that's been really cool. Yeah, I've loved Uganda.
Now, I can't go further without going back a little bit, because you said it's not like the most uncomfortable country. I think that was your word. So what is? Like, like, where have you been where you just were like going, why did I come here?
The country that comes to mind is Egypt.
Okay.
I went to Egypt last year with my sister and her husband, and yeah, it was really difficult to travel through Egypt. It was uncomfortable, and I worried that the rest of Africa might be like that. I've always wanted to visit Africa. My parents travelled through Africa probably 35 years ago when they were recently married, and they've always told us stories of what it was like. We've seen pictures and we've got things throughout the house from Africa. And yeah, Egypt was a tough place, very corrupt, just everywhere, I shouldn't say everywhere, but a lot of places we went were just dealing with that.
Yeah.
So that was really tough. And I think Uganda was such a breath of fresh air, because I just found the people, although a lot do ask you for money, not in this sort of same prevalence as I found in Egypt.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? Because Africa's not the only continent, you know, where people will ask you for something, or you know, where there's fraud, or there's tactics that are underhanded / illegal. What sort of strategies did you learn to cope with that? But more than that, to thrive through that, if that makes sense?
I would say that I'm not at a point yet where I'm thriving through it. I'm still just like, and probably because my travel to countries like this has been short term rather than long term living somewhere. So I think one thing was good. I remember when I arrived when I travelled to India and I was in the airport, there were signs everywhere saying, please do not give to the people who are begging. It's making the situation worse. And I think that was really helpful, because you could not give and then not feel guilty about it. Because that's half the problem, is that you see these people and you so want to give. In Uganda, I think I have, just talking to local staff about what they do has been good, but I haven't been proactive enough. Like some great ideas people have said of, you know, having a packet of biscuits on you or something, so that if someone is asking for something, you can be like, would you like a biscuit? And giving something tangible to not feel like you're just ignoring their needs. But I'm very aware of often giving money, it's not going to them, it's exacerbating the problem. So I definitely don't give money, but I need to be more prepared in having some of those other things, like giving a biscuit or giving something else, so that you're still, I don't know, acknowledging them and not just ignoring them. We had a similar strategy on the streets of Colombo in Sri Lanka, where there's a lot of people on the streets that beg, and so, you know, we
were aware that, as you mentioned, that money doesn't actually go to that person. You know, they've got someone that they're working for, and often it was kids and things like that.
Totally.
So you can buy what they call a lunch packet there, which is some rice and some fish, and it's all wrapped up, you know, in a piece of paper. And so we would make sure that we always had several of these lunch packets with us.
Yeah.
And it was surprising, some of the people that were begging were very thankful, but some of them went, no, I don't want that.
And wouldn't take it.
And wouldn't take it at all.
Yeah, and that's obviously represents that it's a much bigger issue than it looks like on the surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because I think in some other countries, I know that people will be outside dairies and they'll say, can you buy something from the dairy? You'll buy it, they take it back to the dairy, they get the money, and then the money goes to whoever's sort of their, whatever you call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that idea of having stuff on you. I think just because I was only there for a short period of time, I wasn't prepared enough in that area, but something I need to think about when I'm being somewhere more long term and being prepared.
Yeah. So long term, you're going to be spending, I think, the next 4 years in PNG, flying planes through the highlands and the lowlands, or whichever lands I guess you land in, if I can put it that way. So what do you know about where you're headed? What do you know about the program there? Have you done your research? You've done your study? Have you talked to people inside MAF and sort of painted a picture of what you're heading into?
Yes, I've been really fortunate that my time doing ministry partnership and fundraising, getting support, I met a lot of people that have lived and worked in Papua New Guinea in lots of different capacities. Met a lot of people that went there short term for work, or went there on sort of more of a mission style trip, long term, and I am going to likely be eventually based in a small outstation called Ballamore, which is in the western province of PNG in the lowlands area. The idea is for me to start there and before flying in the highlands, because it's quite difficult flying. I mean, it's probably going to be difficult flying in the lowlands too, but not so much as the highlands. So that's where I'm heading. When you look on Google Maps and you Google it, you can't see anything. All you can see is the little Google Maps like outlines the area. I've seen some pictures. It's been good being here in Cairns, because a lot of people are going to PNG and coming back. So I've met people that have just come back that have showed me pictures. Yeah, but it's basically going to be a small town. There'll be me, one other MAF family that I know of, and a small community. There's a hospital, a couple of tiny shops, and that's about it.
Okay. Now, I'm not a pilot, so I really admire people like yourself who can get in a plane and, in this case, be undertaking ministry. But I'm wondering, as you head to PNG, have there been a lot of new skills that you've had to learn in terms of flying that would be specific to PNG? Because you've just mentioned, flying in the highlands is challenging. Yeah,
definitely, and that is a large part of what the training in Uganda has been covering. Things that are new to me is doing something that's called like an airstrip inspection. If you're flying into an airstrip that you haven't been to in a while, you might choose to do an airstrip inspection, which is when you basically circle the strip multiple times at different altitudes to inspect it, see what kind of condition it is and whether it's suitable to land. Now, my flying in New Zealand, I've never flown into a strip that wasn't suitable, and New Zealand government would tell you if it wasn't suitable via some notices that pilots read. So stuff like that is new for me going into MAF, and I guess the remoteness of it. If you're going to like a strip and you're taking some people in and picking some people back up, it'll be up to me to get all the passengers off, unload all their luggage, get the new passengers on, load all their luggage, refuel the aircraft. But if I was flying this aircraft back in New Zealand, there'd probably be a lot more support everywhere you were, everywhere you landed. So that's just a couple of things that will be different for me.
Hey, last thing for you, the tagline here on the Learning Journey podcast is "The sky's the limit." Nice. As a pilot, what does that mean to you?
Sky's the limit. I think that's cool because with aviation, there's a lot of endless possibilities of. One of the things I love about aviation is you can go anywhere. I love to experience new things and go to new places. So I think the sky's the limit talks about, how aviation can really take you places that you can't get any other way.
Yeah, That's fantastic. Well, Renee, I just want to say the very best to you for the journey that is ahead, quite literally, when it comes to heading to PNG and starting this new season. Thank you for answering the call that's on your life. And I'm going to invite you now to be a guest on the podcast, maybe in a year's time after you've been on the ground in PNG for a while. And let's have a chat about, how things have been and what you've kind of learnt being there longer term and all those kind of things. Is that all right?
That'd be great.
Our guest on the podcast this time was Renee Brewer, one of the new members of the MAF family. Make sure you're praying for Renee and indeed all of the others who were in attendance at orientation in Cairns earlier this year as they head into program and bring help, hope and healing through the work of MAF. Now, if you've got a learning story and you'd love to be a guest on the Learning Journey podcast, well, we want to hear from you. Here's what you need to do. Send an email to learning.development@mafint.org and we'll get in touch and get you on the podcast as a future guest. Now, speaking of guests, next time we're headed to Madagascar and talking to one of the local staff on the ground there who very much is enthusiastic about learning and the difference that it has made not only to himself but also the team in Madagascar and the people that they are serving. So make sure that you join us next time for the Learning Journey podcast. And remember, as always, when it comes to your learning, the sky's the limit.